For Season 1, the Brewmaster Tier Set, in my opinion, was one of the best we've seen in a long time, and it had an incredible impact on our playstyle with a rewarding feedback loop and often had us exploring talents we generally strayed away from. With the new tier set approaching us quickly, I wanted to spend some time on the public test realm with the new set bonus for the Brewmaster Monk and give some of my impressions after testing. Let's see what we got. In case you don't know or haven't been keeping up, the 11.1 tier sets are taking a slightly different approach to design. Since we are going to be raiding a casino, all the tier sets revolve around luck or lottery, with things like winning streaks, jackpots, or luck of the draw. The 2 set bonuses for most classes are set up in such a way where they work off of whatever role you're playing, whether that's a tank, a healer, a melee DPS, or a caster. Tanks, we get Luck of the Draw, a proc-based tier bonus that gives us our primary class major defensive for a few seconds. The 2 set will then also provide a small damage buff once that proc occurs, and then the 4 set will build upon that by giving us additional benefits. For Brewmaster specifically, our 2 set reads, each time you take damage you have a chance to activate Luck of the Draw, causing you to cast Fortifying Brew for 6 seconds. Your damage done is then increased by 15% for 8 seconds after you activate Luck of the Draw. So when it procs, you gain Fortifying Brew for 6 seconds and a 15% damage gain for 8 seconds. With the 4 set though, when you gain that 8-second buff for Luck of the Draw, you're also going to gain an additional buff that causes your next 2 blackout kicks to deal 150% increased damage and incur a 2-second reduced cooldown. So if you're playing something like Shadowboxing Treads, instead of a 4-second CD, it's now going to be a 2-second CD. At a glance, this may seem reasonably weaker than our current Season 1 set by a solid amount, but I did want to test a few things before I came to any grand conclusions. So let's take a walk through my testing brain. All sources indicated a 2 ppm or procs per minute. Any person with an elementary math background could figure out that if this is true, we would have 12 seconds of Fortifying Brew every minute, leading to a 20% uptime on Fortifying Brew. While Fortifying Brew is a fairly weak cooldown compared to other tanks' abilities like Shield Wall for the Protection Warrior, Survival Instincts on the Guardian Druid, Brewmaster has a few ways to bolster their Fortifying Brew to be even stronger than the base 20% damage reduction. What's odd about testing this set though in particular is that I can't just sit at a training dummy. While tanking dummies do exist, I found that they're very populated with tanks eager to test out their sets. Instead, I found myself heading over to Cinderbrew Meadery for some testing. As of this testing, the only dungeon currently available is Operation Floodgate, so I was unable to test like this in a Mythic or Mythic Plus environment. Therefore, the mobs should be very tame, which is actually perfect because I'm not trying to test how long I can live or anything like that, but instead how often this procs and how the Fortifying Brew interactions work. I pulled a variety of different mobs and different pulls over and over. Most of these pulls lasted in the range between 40 to 60 seconds in length, and it was reasonable to expect at least 1 proc, if not 2, during these pulls. I guess the good news is that we at least know that it procs, and it's somewhat reflective of the uptime. What I want to do is put myself in a scenario though where I'm taking damage consistently for several minutes so I can get a better idea of uptime, because 40-second pulls or 1-minute pulls really can't do that. But before I do that, I want to see if the buff is independent of a true Fortifying Brew or not. So swapping around talents like Iron Shell Brew would give us an extra 10% DR and 10% more health when this buff does proc. The downside of this is that Fortifying Brew does become a 6-minute base CD instead of 4 when playing Expeditus. We can also grab Determination to buff our stagger effectiveness during this. It seems that the tooltip updates properly, meaning that we can bolster the strength of our tier set defensively by grabbing these talents. Whether this will be the play or not, I'm not quite sure, but it's still quite good to know that it's an option. One other thing that's worth noting is that stagger can proc this effect. It doesn't have to be direct damage from an auto attack, which is great. If it didn't, that means our mastery would actually be working directly against our tier set because we would be dodging attacks instead of taking them, lowering the uptime. Stagger being able to proc it means that it should, if anything, be more effective because we can double dip on damage taken instances due to the natural occurring damage over time effect from stagger. So I pulled the first boss, and this boss took me about 5 minutes to kill, mostly because I wasn't trying to kill him necessarily. I was taking my time. During phase 1, I'm taking damage from the boss and the boss melees and abilities, and during phase 2, there's environmental damage happening when you're trying to hand out drinks, meaning that my stagger, along with tertiary damage hits, is giving me the highest uptime possible. This fight took me about 5 minutes to complete, like I said, and Luck of the Draw procced a staggering 12 times, including some refreshes. This landing Fortifying Brew at a 24% uptime over the encounter, which is slightly higher than 2 procs per minute. This is obviously a very minuscule sample size, but at least it's a start. So far, we know that Fortifying Brew talents do affect our tier set directly, which is good. This tier set can also proc off of Stagger, which is expected, but still a W. The Luck of the Draw buff as well is causing our Blackout kicks to hit extremely hard, reaching upwards of 1.5 mil crits. And keep in mind that this is also hitting 3 targets because we're playing Shadowboxing Treads. The set can also proc back to back, which also means that refreshes and overlaps can happen. Therefore, you will want to attempt to expunge the Luck of the Draw damage buff on your Blackout kick as quickly as possible to maximize damage. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention this, but as of current testing, the Fortifying Brew proc does not grant special delivery kegs. Before getting into running an Operation Floodgate plus 10, I want to note a few things, specifically for Mythic Plus. I am going to be testing Master of Harmony instead of Shado-pan. The only other notable talent change outside of this massive hero talent swap is I'm swapping Scalding Brew for Salsibim's Strength. The main reason for this is because losing our tier set restricts our ability to have optimal energy regeneration, so Master of Harmony just seems to be better. With this, Overwhelming Force also really starts to pull some weight on the damage meters as well, with hits being as large as 300k, and even more so when we have a few stars align. Second, I am actually going to be keeping Charred Passions because this tier set is going to provide a pretty significant damage buff when we gain Luck of the Draw. This is going to pull a lot of damage down from Keg Smash on the meters, and it's also going to bring up Blackout Kick, Overwhelming Force, our Vitality, as well as Charred Passions, allowing for Brewmasters to have a more stable damage palette, while also having big bursty moments with Chi Burst and Exploding Keg. Now that we have a decent idea about how this tier set works, let's take it for a test drive. I queued up for a plus 10 Floodgate key, and before anything else, there is currently a bug on PTR. When you slot a key, it's not showing like the timer and trash count and stuff, so it's going to look like an M0, but I assure you this is a plus 10. At this point, I've ran this dungeon 2 or 3 times as well, so I'm pretty comfortable with the route in here as well as the mechanics, so I'm going to do my best to push out as much damage as possible, but I can only go so far based on how other people perform in the instance. Also, we are scaled to 629 item level, so I am significantly lower than what we currently are on live servers. Operation Floodgate, though, was a great dungeon with some pretty sizable pulls, which should give me a more accurate representation of its damage profile. Some bosses have multiple targets, and some bosses are pure single target, but by the time the key finished up, my overall damage was just shy of 1 million DPS, which is okay. The damage breakdown is quite unique though, with Blackout Kick being my top damage, doing 25% more than Keg Smash. This was pretty much expected since we're no longer running Shado-pan or Scalding Brew. Chi Burst, notably doing a lot of damage, being followed closely by not just Tiger Palm but also Overwhelming Force. Charred Passion was also even able to get some large 800k hits in. What I will say about this damage palette is that it's a lot more even. Instead of relying on like heavy Keg Smash damage to carry the weight of threat, Brewmaster players can now just push damage out regularly with Blackout Kick and Overwhelming Force. Despite having 2 Rep Paladins and a Demon Hunter in this group, I really never felt like threat was a true issue in this instance or in this run. When it comes to uptime though, of course, I had about 5.5 minutes of uptime in a 22-minute key. That's about 24%. Now, I did use Fortifying Brew once, but I really tried hard not to hit it, so a 20 to 22% uptime is generally expected from this buff, not counting our actual uses of Fortifying Brew. I do want to leave you guys with a summary of what I've tested so far and my initial thoughts after testing the set for a few hours. Let's start with the things that I don't like about the set. So first, it's just extremely boring. Unless you're a degenerate like me and you're going to be attempting to push out as much damage as possible with Blackout Kick, this set almost has no interaction with how you're going to play the rotation. While you can refresh the aura based on RNG damage intake, chances are just by doing your rotation normally, you're going to just use both Blackout Kick charges before it procs again. Second, not that Shado-pan is unplayable now, but without the old tier set giving free Keg Smash charges, players are going to feel a little bit more restricted or bogged down by energy when playing Shado-pan. The best solution is just to drop Scalding Brew for Salsibim's Strength, but that is just a small indirect nerf to the hero talent, which emphasizes Keg Smash damage. And then third, the RNG damage reduction is just cringe. While 20% uptime is pretty solid, you can't realistically play around it. If you're going to be doing any form of serious content, you'll play your CDs as expected, and any procs will really just be a perk. Don't get me wrong, I think the tier set is cool and thematic, but practically from a competitive play standpoint, it's just a little too RNG in my opinion, and that goes for all of the tank tier sets. I think that's going to have a massive drawback on a few players. But I don't want to be too negative about this or be a downer because I do like this tier set a lot. So some of the pros, I do really like the idea of shifting the tier set design to benefit the I guess, underrepresented hero talent. It may still be the case that Shado-pan's actually going to just still be better single target or in high keys, but at least the tier set gives Master of Harmony a little bit more of a competitive edge. Alongside of that, Blackout Kick damage increases, it like pulls a lot of potency behind talents like Shadowboxing Treads, Charred Passions, and Blackout Combo. While it doesn't feel like the return will be as high as our Season 1 tier set, additional Blackout combos put a fair bit of agency into skilled Brewmaster players. This damage palette is also just like nicer. One issue I had in Season 1 is that like when setting up larger pulls, it was just kind of a nightmare. Keg Smash was the big hitter, and if a mob wasn't hit by Keg Smash while grouping up a large pull, threat did become a very annoying issue. Having sustained damage through multiple sources like Overwhelming Force, Blackout Kick, Aspect of Harmony, along with our burst CDs like Chi Burst, just makes for a more enjoyable playstyle in my opinion. So what works and what doesn't work? As I mentioned, the tier set has great synergy with Blackout Kick related talents like Charred Passions, Blackout Combo, Shadowboxing Treads, and Overwhelming Force. We also have Iron Shell Brew and Determination directly affecting the Fortifying Brew procs from the set, so there's a potential to have minor defensive talent swaps. Over the course of my entire key as well, we're seeing roughly 2 procs per minute, which translates to 20% uptime, but we did see slightly higher uptime than this in both the Cinderbrew Meadery as well as the +10 Operation Floodgate, so it's to be expected that you're actually going to get a little bit more out of this set than you normally would. Lastly, the thing that doesn't work though is Special Delivery. It sadly does not proc whenever you gain Luck of the Draw. I'm not sure if this is a bug, but it does feel intentional that it wouldn't proc it. So, final thoughts. I am absolutely a shill for the Season 1 tier set. It had a profound impact on how Brewmasters played in Season 1, allowing for some outrageous min-maxing of energy spending, which translated to pretty high damage instances. It also provided a smoother cadence of our abilities while in combat, with the high chance of Keg Smash resets. I am of the opinion that this tier set is up there with Keg of the Heavens, and if Brewmasters ever get a talent tree adjustment or rework, I would be thrilled to see this tier set return in some capacity in the form of a talent. As for the new tier set, it has a much more restricting feeling on talent choices, though I'm not against seeing Sal Salabim's strength return. While I will miss the old tier set, the new damage profile of Master of Harmony talent tree is very fun and refreshing after being locked into Shado-pan for like the last 4 months. This set also aesthetically looks phenomenal and probably one of my favorite Monk sets to date. Overall, I'm excited for Season 2 and to see what Monk can do. Over the next few weeks, I will be experimenting way more with this tier set with the accompanying hero talents, and I'll be giving more thoughts down the road as the patch approaches. Let me know down below if I missed anything or if there's something you want me to test in the future. I will also be covering all the other tanks in the near future as well, but I wanted to start, of course, with Monk. A massive shout out to all my Patreon supporters, because without them, there would be much less of, well, whatever this was. I hope you're all staying happy, healthy, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.